space. Well, not really. Take two. Here, in the Mitten State. Welcome to Code 47, bringing you all things Star Trek. Spanning the quadrants, the best thing since the neutral zone.
Friends, back again. Welcome to the Code 47 podcast on the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network. I am your humble servant, Trek Lord of West Michigan, Charlie Carden, joined by my sidekick, the Northern Trek Surf. I believe he was trying to call himself last week. Rich, how are you today?
I'm good. That's pretty accurate too, though. Really,
the Trek Surf.
The Trek Surf of North, I guess. I don't.
There you go. But this is a very special episode. We are joined by. This is our first, and I would say eminently most important interview episode we're ever going to do, because we are talking to IDW comic book writer legends, the dynamic brother duo of Scott and David Tipton, joining us from the West Coast. Gentlemen, say hello, and hello, welcome.
Hey there. Thanks for having us.
Hello.
All right. Boy, it's great to have you guys. This is a big, big honor. So I'm going to just jump right into it. I've been reading your stuff for years, but over at IDW, you guys are known for doing a great adaptation of the classic TOS episode, The City on the Edge of Forever. You're known for such great works as Star Trek and the Planet of the Apes, which I know Rich dug into for the purpose of this. And you're responsible for the ongoing Mirror Mirror Star Trek The Next Generation series, of which we will touch upon only very briefly. But I have read a lot, if not all of those, and have enjoyed many of them. So let's kick it off with the question that we ask anytime in any of our podcasts when we have a guest or a guest host. What is your origin story? Specifically, what is your Star Trek origin story? How did you guys fall into Trek? Scott, you first, please.
Well, it's going to be a pretty similar story, obviously.
Right.
David and I both grew up watching Star Trek every day on KTVU Channel 2 in the Bay Area. Alongside our father, who was a big Trek fan, every day watching Star Trek and eating dinner.
Oh, right. Well, there you go. Regular staple, and it seeps into your DNA. That's good stuff. So from that, you're a kid and you get into an adulthood. How did you break into the Star Trek business? What does that writing process look like?
Dave, you want to go?
Go ahead, Scott.
Okay. Well, as far as how we got into it, was at the time I was writing some Angel and Spike comics for IDW. And it was about the time that IDW got the license. And so I went to the editor-in-chief at the time, Chris Ryan. I'm like, look, man, Star Trek's my jam. You can't just give me the job. Just let me pitch. I'll get myself in there. And so he let me pitch for it. And then once I pitched on something that they liked, that was when I turned to David. And I was like, look, I'm going to be bugging you constantly about this because you and I have such similar ideas about what makes good Star Trek. I said, come in and write this one with me, and if you don't like it, you never have to do it again. And then he was like, all right, we'll try one. And that was how many years ago, David?
It's been a while now.
It's been a while.
Yeah, and then at that time, IDW was just taking on the Star Trek license, so they were really starting something from scratch, and it had been a while since there'd been any Star Trek comics, so it was kind of a whole new thing for them as well.
Yeah, it was perfect. Really was a perfect timing all the way around.
That is awesome. So that license, I'm trying to remember when I read the first one of those comics, because I was, I have read Star Trek comics since the 80s, and then into the 90s. I love the second volume of the DC Star Trek because it was set in the movie era, which is, when it comes to TOS, that's what I dig. But when Marvel grabbed the license, I was in college. I love those comics. I wouldn't say all of them were super great, but I read all of them, I think. And then, it went poof, and then it made its way over to IDW, and I'm an idiot here. Was it Wildstorm Comics and then IDW, or are they one and the same? I'm drawing a blank.
It was Wildstorm first, and I think before IDW. And Wildstorm was like an offshoot at the time of Image, right? Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, now it's all coming back to me. Well, that's awesome. Well, I have monopolized the question asking, but Rich wrote all the questions. So, Rich, I'm going to kick it back to you. It's your turn.
I didn't just write all the questions. Come on.
trying to pump you up. I'm trying to pump you up.
Oh, thanks. All right. So you guys have tackled a ton. Like, Charlie introduces himself as a Trek Lord of Western Michigan. I would say you guys seem like the Trek Lords of the Western United States when it comes to this stuff. Is there something that you haven't done yet that you really, really want to do? I mean, outside of this huge mirror universe arc that you guys have undertaken, which, by the way, is fantastic, what we've read so far. Anything that you guys would love to just take on at this point after you're done with that?
Well, we've been lucky. I mean, we've gotten to dip our toes into just about everything. There's not too many parts of the Trek universe that are open to us that we haven't had the chance to at least play with a little bit.
Sure.
I mean, we always want to go back to the motion picture era.
Nice.
That first film had such an impact on both of us. Would you say that's kind of our biggest kind of like spot left we want to get to?
Right. Okay. And is that something that I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Please go ahead.
I was just going to say we had been wanting to go back and do some more Deep Space Nine, and we managed to do that last year. So that was something that we were looking forward to doing again. So Deep Space Nine is something that we had done almost 10 years ago, and then there hadn't been any Deep Space Nine comics for a while, so we were looking forward to doing that.
That's awesome. And the story from 10 years back, was that the Fool's Gold story,
yes,
if I'm not mistaken? And what was the story that you guys got to do last year?
We just finished it was our Deep Space Nine noir story, folks.
Yes, I read that one, one of those. I mean, I'm sometimes all over the place reading my comics. I'm mostly a Marvel zombie, but I stick with the Star Trek stuff. And it's funny to come to realize when getting ready for this that you guys have written almost everything that I can think of when it comes to IDW. So it's funny, I'm going to spin off of something that you said. You mentioned the motion picture era, and it's the actual Star Trek, the motion picture. It's so controversial amongst fans because people like to pick it apart because the style was the uniforms were gray or blobby and were in pajamas and blah blah. But the 1701, the Constitution class refit, will go down in my fandom of enjoyment of anything related to space is the most beautiful thing that has ever been created. I love that ship. I would live on that ship if I had my druthers about it. If any of this was real. In the lore of the Star Trek fan club chapter that I run and that Rich is a part of the ship's lineage is one of those ships, the USS Petoskey, and we even had some art done about it. You'll see it on our website. That's us standing in the monster maroon uniforms on the USS Petoskey. So a little bit outside of baseball, but you guys clearly dig on that and stuff. I mean, what's an idea about a Star Trek the motion picture story, just in a nutshell, that you guys would love to do?
Oh, we haven't even. We have plenty of thoughts about what to do, but we've never actually kind of sat down and plot anything out because that just seems like bad luck. That never happen.
Best laid intentions. No, exactly. So, Rich, right back to you. I took it over and I'm steering it back. Get back in that boat and drive that sucker.
All right, I'm going to try and dodge that dock. Now, I read the Planet of the Apes crossover that you guys did, and I loved every single panel of it. It was amazing. We're touching on my two of my favorite sci-fi franchises, and it felt like you guys maybe have a lot of love for Planet of the Apes as well. Is that the case? Are you guys big Planet of the Apes fans?
Oh
yeah, definitely. I mean, nice. we really like that whole series. I think one of the real things to talk about with that book also is the great art. It was Rachel Stott, who was just fantastic.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Totally. Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah. That was her debut, by the way. That was her first work.
Wow.
Yeah, and Chris Ryle found her portfolio when he was in the UK at a convention, and immediately just hired her up and called us and we're like, "Here's your new artist," and we were like, "Wow."
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. Rachel has a really unique style that I think really made the most of that book. I think all the credit in the world for that project as well. I think she's fantastic.
Definitely, between her art and the voice that you give these characters, it rang so much accurately. It rang very accurately as TOS Star Trek. I mean, I read things in people's voices. It was great.
That was the thing, because that was something that IDW had been trying to get going for a while, and nobody could crack the concept.
Oh, sure.
and that was the thing that we had the most trouble with too, was how do you make these two worlds work together, because they're so polar opposite.
Right.
Nothing is more positive than Star Trek, and nothing is more negative than the Planet of the Apes movie.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's your oil and water. No, I can see that without a doubt. I would love to touch a little bit upon, obviously not looking forward to the Mirror Universe stuff, but kind of looking backwards. And again, I've read most, but not all of it. I was right in the middle of one of them when we took on this project. But something that I love, and then Scott, just kind of referencing the conversation that you and I were a part of when we were on the Scotch Trekker, and David Mack was there as well, is the fact that Star Trek versus the dirty word Star Wars, if you will, the Lucasfilm group, since Disney took over, and again, Rich, I'm a Star Wars podcaster, so is Rich, so we're definitely very steeped in the lore, but everything the vast majority of everything that has happened since Disney took over the license and ownership, and then the Lucasfilm continuity group, is that everything webs across is canonical. It's interconnected and this and that. With Star Trek, with the exception of, at least to my knowledge, two Voyager novels from the 1990s, nothing publishes canonical. And I would love to be wrong, but I was told actually by David Mack on that call that I was not wrong. So, that being said, looking at the Mirror Universe stuff, seeing how you guys have, the Mirror Universe in comics goes all the way back to that first DC Star Trek run where, it was post Star Trek 3, and they were trying to take Spock back to Earth within the concept of the comics, and they cross over in the Mirror Universe, and what they found out was that nothing ever improved in Mirror Universe. They were still kind of going about as their business, and Admiral Kirk was in play, and Evil Spock was in play, and yada, yada, yada. And there were novels about Mirror Universe stuff going, between then and then. And then 1993's, wasn't through the Looking Glass, it was crossover, late DS9 season 2, flipped Kira and Bashir over to the Mirror Universe, where we saw what really happened. The Terran Empire collapsed, the Klingon and Cardassian alliance rose to power, Bajor was a major power in that, and it set forth, DS9 episodes that happened. So, short story long, as I'm babbling like an idiot, is that I have a tremendous amount of respect for what you guys did in taking the existing canon and still finding it, the Terran Empire didn't completely collapse. It's just itty bitty 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 bitty. It's just Earth's solar system now, and ships rolling around. The Stargazer is still rolling around, and there's a Picard, and it's just, I love how you guys did that. I just absolutely dug it.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I mean, the question of canon is something that comes up a lot. And, as opposed to Lucasfilm and Star Wars, there has been so much material written with Star Trek comics and novels. I think, I would say a lot more than even Star Wars, wouldn't you say, David?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. And the rules basically for canon different in Star Wars and Star Trek as far as the licensed material goes, as far as comics and other things. It's the way the game is played is a little bit different. I mean, Star Wars tends to want to say, and then you can be careful too, because Star Wars at one point had a whole lot of stuff that they decided wasn't canon, but it was canon earlier.
Right, exactly.
And in Star Trek, the rules are pretty much that what's on film or television is what's canon, and what's outside of those is supposed to fit into canon, but is not technically canon. And so what usually people look for in good Star Trek stuff like that is, does it look like it would be canon? Does it fit into it? And that's what we try to do. I mean, I think Scott and I try really hard at making it fit into canon. And, if it's good enough, then at least in the back of people's minds, they think, well, I can see that happening that way. That makes sense. And that's a good way to think about it, I think.
And it's also the only way to really be fair to anybody who's trying to write Trek novels and Trek comics, because there's just so much material, it's impossible to make everything line up with everything else that's been written. And that would be just absolutely a fool's errand. So the point is always trying to make these feel like they could easily have been episodes, and that they fit everything we've seen on screen.
Yeah.
Right, and to further, I have a different question. Has there been an occasion that something that you guys have done and put in a comic has maybe eked its way back in? And again, with Star Trek being off TV from 2005 to 2017, has there been anything that you guys have done that has maybe worked its way back into canon? Or do you think that might be on the horizon?
I would say I don't think anything that we've done has directly shown up as a cause. I will say that we occasionally anticipate things that get popular again.
Okay.
Nice. Because what often happens is that the people who are writing the canon material are now of the age where they like the stuff that we did. So all of a sudden, there are Idosians coming in because they like the animated series, or Saurians show up because we like the Saurian and motion picture, and we have been using those guys all along, but now they're showing up.
Yeah,
Right.
you've seen that a lot with for a long time the animated series was considered, it's so far out from being canon we won't even acknowledge it in TV or movies. And nowadays you see things from the animated series from Star Trek the animated series popping up sometimes in Star Trek. So I think that's where things kind of evolve, and like Scott said, people who like the animated series as kids, maybe it's a little more canon than we thought it was.
Right. Yeah. No, I've seen that. I know we saw a couple of incidences of that in Picard. I think there was a reference where the Rikers lived, and he said there's Katinzi raiders where that's why he put up a security system. I don't know if I got the name of that alien race right, because I will admit the animated series is my one real soft spot when it comes to Star Trek. But the ones I'm talking about, the big bear people.
Yeah, it's the Kazinti.
Kazinti, thank you so much. Oh my gosh, how embarrassed! It's rare that I get stumped. I kind of go on the trivia nights for our region in Starfleet International, and I'm a scourge. I mean, they hate my guts because I'll slay anyone else. So when I miss something, it hurts that much more.
You're gonna end up getting banned from those trivia nights, Charlie.
I know. Yeah, they don't want to see any more piece of me. So all right, I blathered for a while. Rich, take a stab.
Well, I want to sidestep Trek here for a minute. You guys seem to have a quite a history with comics in general. Scott, you have a website, blastoffcomics.com. Is that right?
Yeah, that's where my Comics 101 history column lives these days.
Right.
I've been doing that for years, right? My weekly column on comic book history.
Right. Yeah. So is there a character that you guys would want to take on outside of the Star Trek universe, outside of what you have done? Because I know you've done some Astro Boy, and you mentioned Scott and Angel and Spike stuff as well.
We've gotten to do Doctor Who. We've gotten to do all kinds of great stuff.
Yeah.
I know there are a few things at DC and Marvel I'm a huge fan of, and I know. For David, what's it for you?
The one that was sort of like that really was Doctor Who. It was the way that came about was sort of interesting. At first was the crossover, and then the standalone Doctor Who stories, and those were ones that maybe I didn't know Doctor Who quite as well as a kid as I knew Star Trek, but it was really a fun challenge to take on Doctor Who and learn more about it and work in that world. So I think that was like a really important one for me.
Yeah, you were able to kind of give those that kind of 1970s Marvel cosmic vibe in some of those, which I know that's a big thing of Marvel stuff that you're a big fan of.
Right, and I think that's what fans of Doctor Who comics are looking for that, and we tried really hard, maybe even more with the Doctor Who than with Star Trek, that we wanted those Doctor Whos to look like the Doctor Who comics from the 70s and the 80s, and because they were really looking for that, and I think that's why the book worked as well as it did, I think.
Nice. So which fandom would you say is the most rabid, Doctor Who or Star Trek? As far as like willingness to attack people for inaccuracies, I guess.
Wait, I'm going to say I've never had a problem with that. I've never had like a sort of like any sort of bad experiences with readers where they're attacking us on getting something wrong or disagreeing about something. Star Trek fans, like to a number, are I just kind of like the most very laid back, cool. It's about the material and they like it and they like talking about it.
Yeah, I can't say I've seen that much either. I mean, what's the bigger difference between Doctor Who and Star Trek fans is that Doctor Who is a little bit more on the space fantasy side as opposed to science fiction, like the Star Trek might be considered, and people looking for different kind of things and what they're reading. And so there's a different kind of feel for those Doctor Who stories.
I will say that the Doctor Who fandom has a tendency to kind of like wax and wane more as being more popular and less and more. It very much varies depending on how popular the current Doctor is.
Especially here in the U.S., yeah. Especially in the U.S., yeah.
In terms of fan stories, the one story that kind of brings to mind, I was at a convention in Germany, and I was signing comics, and this guy walks up to me, and he's got like what looked like architect models, maps under his arm, and he rolls them out on the desk and proceeded to show me exactly how I'd gotten the layout wrong on one of the space stations. But then I look, and he's got a stack of everything I've ever written that he wants to have signed. And I'm like, buddy, sit down. Let's talk about this map, because you're buying the books. You're my pal. Let's go. I'm never gonna have a problem talking to somebody who's excited about Star Trek that much and wants and just wants to like drill down into the details.
Oh yeah.
Awesome.
Trek fans are definitely. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
I think also the little difference also is that if you're a big enough fan that you're buying the comics, you're probably not going to be quite as much prone to the kind of outrage that some fans have.
Now, I think when we compare Star Trek and Star Wars, I'm sorry, Star Wars fans are definitely kind of a little more toxic, I think. So,
hate to say it. Though I've certainly seen, since, Star Trek has taken in the last, 4 or 5 years, a different direction in television. I mean, Discovery was a departure in a different type of storytelling, and Picard is a different type of storytelling for that particular character that your toxic fandom can peak out, but you're right, holding it up against the way it is, Star Wars, since that came back to life and, once Disney took over, oh my gosh, watch out.
Yeah.
It's also important to remember that the toxic fans are just the loudest.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's easy to think that a whole segment of fandom has like turned in an ugly direction. And I mean, I think it's much more a symptom of social media than it is an entire fandom going sour. I mean, are there fans out there who express themselves on Star Wars in very unpleasant ways? Yeah, but I don't think that's the norm at all.
That's good. And like I said, and I think even last week on our show when we were recording, our third partner is a nice young lady named Erin. We were talking about the fact that it's Pride Month and how we're very supportive of that, because everything that is about Star Trek has to do with diversity. And I talk about IDIC, infinite diversity and infinite combinations. It's a mantra of how I look at Star Trek. And when you run into fans who are so dead set against actual diversity in Star Trek, it really makes me scratch my head. It makes me say, well, what is it that you actually like about Star Trek if you don't like the bedrock of what this entire franchise is all about, is humanity moving beyond differences and exploring the stars and working with aliens and this thing and that thing? What is it that you really like if you don't embrace diversity? It's just, I don't know.
That is a head scratcher. You want to say, I mean, from episode 1, what was Roddenberry all about? He was about that ideal, and there's a reason there's a black woman in a position of power on the bridge, and the Asian guy and the Russian guy. It's all about people of different like creeds and everything else living together. So how you can say you like Star Trek and not get that kind of boggles me.
Right.
But again, like I say, I always consider that is much more the exception than the rule.
Right. Absolutely right. So, goodness gracious, Rich, what else do we want to ask these nice gentlemen about?
Well, I think I've hit everything that I wanted to talk about. I don't want to keep them too long, but we talked about the current Mirror Universe arc, at least a little bit. We talked about Planet of the Apes, which I got to tell you guys, after I finished reading that, I wanted to go back and watch Planet of the Apes again, which that's how good.
The job was done.
Yes, the job was done. Yeah.
There is a funny story with Planet of the Apes at Star Trek, in that was very unusual for us, even more so than Trek Doctor Who, because in this one we had like 5 different masters to deal with. We had our IDW and Boom Studios, the publishers.
Right.
And then we had CBS and Fox, the licensors, and then the Heston estate.
Oh my God!
Oh God, that's right.
Man.
Oh my.
And luckily, CBS is always great with us. We never have a problem with CBS. Fox was really, really easily cooperative and excited about it and gave us all good notes, but not that many. Our publishers were great, but the best note we got from a licensor was from the Heston estate, and his only request was to tell the artist to make Taylor's thighs look meatier.
Oh my God. Meteor. Let me see about that.
Can't have any chicken legs when you're George Taylor, right?
Just getting to write a Captain Kirk Taylor fist fight.
Oh, man.
That would actually just hung it up. It's not going to get any better than that.
I hear you. I draw the line. Okay, parting question for each of you individually. Favorite single Star Trek episode or film?
Dave, you go first.
It's probably Sit on the Edge of Forever would be my favorite, I would guess. It also might be the Doomsday Machine, but it's probably Sit on the Edge Forever.
Gotcha. Scott.
Yeah, I got to go City too. I mean, it was my favorite before we got the chance to work with Harlan directly on it for the original teleplay graphic novel. But then after that experience, getting to know Harlan and work with him on it, and just the way, not only how great that book turned out, and all credit goes to that's Harlan's teleplay. I always think of us as kind of just carpenters building according to his plan in that book. And J.K. Woodward did an amazing job on the art. It's gorgeous. I have such a soft spot in my heart for that book. Even though it's not exactly the episode they aired, City on the Edge is always going to be probably my favorite.
And it worked out really well because Scott and I, we got to meet Harlan, and Scott, I think you even knew him before that, but more importantly, we had been big fans of Harlan's work outside of Star Trek for years before that. So, yeah, so it was a really important project for us in that way as well.
That is awesome. How
what
cool.
a great experience, yeah.
Well, gentlemen, God, thank you for this amazing opportunity. Obviously, the next big thing for you guys is going to be the Mirror War, which we will see this fall, which we will absolutely not ask you about. But it's public information, so I can at least say that I'm aware of it. But
we're just starting to get some artwork back on the first couple of issues, and we're really excited about it. It's looking really, really fun.
I can't wait. Well, as soon as I am able, I'm a digital comics reader. I will have a subscription to it when it is. I may have even already done it, but I'll have to check. But as soon as I do, I'll be subscribed to it, and it will be in my inbox. And we will. Rich and I do the comic book reading on this podcast. Erin is not so much. We're just hoping to get her to watch Lower Decks so that when it goes live, she can break it down with us every week. But we're still trying. She's real resistant. But no, I have no doubt that Rich and I have done a couple of comic book reviews already, and I have no doubt that we're going to have a segment monthly to be talking about the latest issue of the Mirror War, so you can count on that.
And also,
definitely.
If for those who have heard about Mirror War and want to catch up, just this week, a collection of all of our Mirror graphic novels together under one book comes out in bookstores.
Nice, gotcha. And will there be a subsequent digital edition, or I know you can go.
I'm positive there will be, yeah.
Yeah. Gotcha. Very good. So, well, that being said, piggybacking off of that, if our listeners want to find you guys out on the socials, where are the best spots to pick you up?
I'm at Scott _ Tipton on Twitter, and you go to blastoffcomics.com every week for my column on comic book history.
And I'm David _ Tipton on Twitter.
Awesome. Good deal. Well, yes, and I will drop those in the show notes as well. But with that being said, gents, thanks again. And Rich, why don't you go ahead and play me out?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, guys. It was a great honor to be able to speak with you today.
Oh, our pleasure. Anytime.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, everybody.
For more information about Starfleet International in Michigan and beyond, please visit the Grand Petoskey and the Nomad on Facebook. The Code 47 podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network and is produced by Todd Oxtra.
Friends, as always, thank you for joining us. Thank you, Tipton Brothers, as well. As mentioned, we are a part of a great podcasting network of 4 great shows. We have a brand new website over at secretfriendsunite.com where you can grab episodes of all of our shows. This is Code 47, all about Star Trek. The Holocron Chronicles is all about Star Wars. Co-op Mode is about video games. And every Friday since 2014, Secret Friends Unite, myself and Todd Oxford talking about geek culture at large. You can find us over on Twitter at Secret Friends U. We've also got a great merchandise store over on TeePublic, ever expanding. Show your love for our show and help support our effort to bring you great content. Hoodies, t-shirts, stickers, magnets, etc. So go find us there. And brothers, thank you again. Rich, it's always a pleasure. And Absolutely. I'm going to tell you, as always, that sharing is caring, and keep on trekking.
And remember, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. Or the one.